There are two teachings in our service today which I'd particularly like to bring back to your attention and for your sustenance over this next month. Interestingly and unsurprisingly, they both bring us back to some knowledge of beauty. And really, in a sense, that is what transformation is, and it is what transformation does. That it brings us back into the most sustaining, powerful knowledge of our beauty. In fact, if we begin to think about transformation at all, and why we would seek it, it's not that we would become different people. We don't need to become different people. It's that we would become more and more ourselves. That we would put in front of us fewer and fewer barriers and defences and unnecessary rages and frustrations and resentments, so that we could be more and more ourselves, and so that we could see one another more and more clearly as to who we are. If we were to achieve this transformation, we would truly live in heaven, on earth. It wouldn't mean either that we would lose our complexity. On the contrary, we would be able to take our complexity, including our shadow, including our mistakes, including our ignorance, we could take it far more lightly. We would be less obsessed with it, and we would be far less inclined to project it onto others and to hate them for it. This is what transformation is. In the spiritual logic that we re-enter with every one of our services, we discover that this is what it is, that we discover and rediscover ourselves as beings of love, as beings of beauty. The two teachings that I feel so marvellously bring us to this. The first is from Hazrat Inayat Khan that Jane read for us. Humankind thinks, speaks and acts according to the pitch to which the soul is tuned. I think one could also say according to the pitch to which we allow the soul to tune us. Are we listening to the soul? Are we listening deeply to the beauty of the music, for example? The music that Kim and Heather bring us, but also the music of the teachings, the music of the planets, the music of daily existence. Are we allowing it to tune us to our highest pitch? The highest note, says Hazrat Inayat Khan, one could be tuned to is the divine note. Are we aligning ourselves with our own divinity? Do we dare open to the divinity of which we are an unconditional part? And then he says, it is in that pitch, once you arrive in it, that you begin to express the manner of God in everything you do. A manner which is not only beautiful, but is beauty itself. This is such a call to who we are, not only beautiful, but beauty itself. And of course, many of us, all of us, constantly betray our own beauty. We forget our own beauty. We miss it. We miss it. And we miss its signs, and we walk past it over and over again. But the magnificent thing about beauty is that it takes only the smallest note to call us back. It takes only the smallest hint to remind us of who we are and what we are capable of being, and that we can continue on this path of transformation with a light heart, with a glad heart, and with a light heart. The other teaching that I felt very drawn to today is the teaching from Acts. It's such a wonderful story. There's Peter and John walking into a temple at the 9th hour, the hour of prayer, the hour of surrender, the hour of submission. And what happens? They're accosted by someone who's asking them for help, for financial help. And this is someone who has literally been unable to walk from the time of his birth. In fact, in a slightly different translation of this same passage, Acts 3, 1-8, it says, "Once Peter and John were going up to the temple at the 9th hour, the hour of prayer, and a man who had been lame from his mother's womb was being carried up. Every day they put him down at the door of the temple, which was called the Beautiful Portal." And you know, that's something that has attracted me to this story over and over again, because this is a story of transformation, and I'll say more about that in a minute. But the portal through which one must pass in order to be transformed is the portal of beauty. More potently than that, it is the portal of the recognition of beauty. And you know, we pass through such portals every day. We pass through such a portal every day in our remembering who we are. This man was carried through the portal of beauty so that he could ask for alms of those who entered the temple. Because, of course, good Jews would give, as good Christians would give, as good Muslims would give, as good people of all faiths would give. So it was a very sensible place to be, wasn't it? And he needed alms because he needed money, because he wasn't able to walk and he wasn't able to work. He was wholly dependent on the kindness of others. So when this man saw Peter and John, and not thinking them in any way different from anyone else in the crowd, and they were about to go into the temple, he asked them also for a few coins. Now, here we come to the wonderful part of this story. Peter looked at him together with John and said, "Look at us. Look at us." So this was a moment of real connection. Not only do I want you to look at me, I want to look at you. I want to have a moment of communion with you, in which through our eyes we recognize the soul in one another. It's a very, very powerful thing already. That would be enough. In some traditions it's called drishti, giving the blessing through the eyes, from one soul to the other soul. It's already so much. The man turned towards them, expecting to get a gift from them, and of course not realizing for a moment what a portal of beauty he had just passed through. Peter said, "I own no silver or gold, but what I have I will give you. In the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, walk." In other words, in the name of spiritual power, rise up, see your needs differently, transform your view of yourself. Understand that when we are fixated only on what we can give one another materially, we limit one another in our vision of who we are. Of course, it's vital that we also give to one another materially. We are physical beings also, but we have something to give that is greater than any gold or silver. We have the treasures of spiritual knowledge. We have the treasures of recognition of who we are. We have the privilege of knowing that our souls can be tuned to the highest note. It's awesome. It is awesome. And we don't need to be special to deserve it. We don't need to adhere to any dogma to deserve it. This is our divine inheritance, offered to all of humankind, unconditionally. Unconditionally. So we go back to our story again. Peter grasped the man by the right hand and lifted him upright. Just imagine that feeling for that person who had not felt the ground beneath his own feet throughout a lifetime. Now to be able to stand steadily on his own physical feet, but even more than that, on the feet of his insides, on the ground of his insides, on the miracle of his immediate experience. At once, we are told, strength flowed into him. Is this not what also happens to us when we go through the portal of beauty? That strength flows into us. And sometimes we notice this very particularly when we are approaching that portal from a place of despair or emptiness. Maybe it's then particularly that we notice what flows into us, what strengthens us, what renews our power, and what renews our sense of connection to what we are, to where we have come from, and to where we are going through the many portals of beauty. The man jumped up and was able to stand and walk. He regained his faculties. And isn't that what we also want? We want to regain our spiritual faculties. We want to be able to run. We want to be able to walk. We want to be able to kneel. We want to be able to be humble. We want to be able to be filled up and to say, as David White did in the poem, enough. We have enough. We are enough. We can be present to our beauty and to the beauty of one another. So this man walked and jumped and praised God, jumped for joy and praised the divine spirit that moved him from one state of mind to another, that moved him from one level of consciousness to another, that expanded and transformed his vision from a limited vision to an unlimited vision. That man was us. Peter and John are us. We are all instruments to remind one another of who we are, of what we are, of what we can achieve effortlessly, of what our inheritance is, and what the source of our beauty is and will always be.